God doesn't just provide to meet your needs, he provides to deepen your faith. See, in John 6:51, Jesus says, I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Anyone who eats this bread will live forever, and this bread which I will offer so that the world may live is my flesh. See, the Israelites received manna so they could survive each day, but Jesus came so that we could live forever. Manna met their daily needs, while Jesus meets our eternal need for salvation. He doesn't just give bread, Jesus is the bread. See, when you're starving for purpose, when you're hungry for belonging, when you're thirsting for peace, only Jesus satisfies. God doesn't just provide to meet your needs, he provides to deepen your faith. God's goal in providing for you isn't just to meet your needs, the things that you need each and every day. It's in order for you to rely on him even more, to deepen your faith in him. Hey everybody, as a side note, before I get started, some small groups are changing. I will be given a note at the end to tell you what's going on, but don't let me forget that. All right, that was all. Guys, if we've not met before, my name is Brandon. I'm so excited you're here tonight. Thank you for taking time out of your week to come hang out with us on a Sunday night and share a meal and play games and hang out in small group and just have fun together. I appreciate you guys for making this a part of your weekly routine. It's an awesome thing that I love that you guys do. I'm going to start with a story tonight, guys. I'm going to start with a story. When I was a senior in high school, my best friend Jacob and I, we decided that we wanted to coach my younger brother's basketball team. Now, my brother was in 8th grade, and it was just a rec league team. It wasn't like a huge deal or anything. This was the rec league that Jacob and I had been playing in for years. This is where we played all our sports, so basketball, soccer. I think I played ultimate frisbee here one time. It's like a huge complex where you would coach. And so we decided that we were going to coach, and we're seniors in high school, and every other coach in the league is like somebody's mom or dad on the team who doesn't really want to be there that much. And so to us, we're like, we're going to kick everybody's butt. We're going to do so good. We are like the young kids. We know the league, and our plan was really just to show up and tell the kids to run around at practice for an hour each week, and then at the game, we were just going to win them all. And that was our plan. And we really did it because we wanted to spend time with my brother. My brother, he's a couple years younger than me, and Jacob had been my best friend for probably 6 or 7 years at this point, so he knew my brother really well too. We were excited. This was going to be a fun time. So the first practice goes pretty much exactly how you'd think it would go, and we thought it was great. They just showed up and scrimmaged against each other for an hour and went home, and that was all it was. It was super simple. And the next week, I'm at home, and my mom calls me, and she's like, hey, I want to let you know that your brother broke his arm at school today. And I'm like, first of all, I'm thinking okay, I went to school for about 13 years now, and I never broke my arm. So what did he do in math class or something to break his arm? Apparently, he had been in gym class, and one of the rims in the basketball, in the gym, had been lowered to 8 feet. And now, as a guy, when I see a rim at 8 feet, I'm like, I have to go dunk on that. It's just something that triggers in my brain. I'm like, I need to touch that rim. And as an 8th grader, really it is even more so. And so what had happened is he had jumped up and grabbed the rim, and because he was in gym class, he was all sweaty, so he slips off and puts his arm back, and his arm snapped in half when he hit the ground. He's got this really purple scar that runs on both sides of his arm from where they had to put the, he might have screws in his arm still. I don't know. Regardless, the point of that is now Jacob and I are coaching this basketball team of 8th graders where we know nobody on the team. We have no correlation to any of these students or these kids, and we're like, okay, I guess this is still going to be basketball, so it's interesting enough. Season went fine. We made the playoffs, lost in the first round. Justin, my brother, actually got to come back and play in the first round of the playoffs. He did all right, but was timid because, he'd just broken his arm 3 months earlier, so he wasn't super confident. The point of that story, though, is I want you guys, tonight we're going to be talking about this idea of frustration and disappointment when our expectations are not met in the way that we expect them to. Frustration and disappointment when our expectations are not met the way we expect them to. And before I really jump into tonight's focus, we haven't had content for this series in the last 2 weeks. So I'm going to cover 2 weeks in about a minute and a half each. See if I can do it, because 2 weeks ago we had Bring the Fam, which was awesome. Absolutely loved that night. And then last week we had Mother's Day, so we didn't get to meet there. So 2 weeks ago, what we were going to talk about is the story of Passover, okay? So Passover was when God told his people to take the blood of a spotless lamb and paint their doorposts so that the angel of death would pass over their house. See, God's people were enslaved in Egypt, and they were enslaved to these Egyptians. And so Pharaoh and the Egyptians didn't listen to God, and they didn't do what God was telling them to do, and their firstborn in every household died. But the Israelites were saved because they had been passed over because of this blood that had saved them. And this is actually pointing further into the New Testament, where we see that Jesus and his blood saves us through an eternal rescue. Then week 3, we're picking up right after that. So the Israelites have now been freed from their slavery. They're going into the wilderness, really. They've left Egypt. But instead of praising God, they start grumbling right away because they're led to the Red Sea, which is where they have to then cross this, they just have all this water in front of them. And the Egyptians are now chasing them down because they realize, if we don't have the Israelites to work for us, what are we supposed to do? We don't want to do the work ourselves. So the Egyptians are chasing them down, and they're like, you just let us out here to die. What are we supposed to do at this point? And so God tells Moses, who's leading the Israelites, to go out into the Red Sea and to take his staff and to plunge it into the water. And the Red Sea just splits open, just splits in half. And the Israelites are able to walk across the Red Sea, which wasn't really a simple walk. It wasn't like splitting apart your pool and walking across that where it's flat the whole time. They had to climb down into the bottom and then walk across it. And it's uneven. It wasn't a simple trek for them, but they get across, they get to the other side. And the Egyptians are still chasing them, and God closes the Red Sea up on the Egyptians and saves them from these Egyptians once again. This is the second time God has saved them. So now here we are, picking up tonight's message. God has now saved his people, the Israelites, from the Egyptians twice in a very short time. And just after crossing the Red Sea on dry land, Exodus 16:13, it says, "If only the Lord had killed us back in Egypt," they moaned. There we sat around with pots filled with meat and ate all the bread we wanted, but now you have brought us into the wilderness to starve us all to death. So after everything that they've seen God do just now, they've seen God save them in all of these different ways, they're still but you could have left us there where we had food. They're really missing the point here. But before we judge them, why are they responding in this way? Because when gratitude fades, fear grows. When gratitude fades, fear grows. See, the Israelites were becoming uncomfortable. They were hungry, they were vulnerable, they were lost. They knew that Moses was leading them to the promised land, but they didn't know where that was. And so they're in this wilderness, they're walking along, and they don't know what's going on. And instead of remembering God's past provision and how he has provided for them, they rewrote the past in their mind in order to justify their frustration in the present. See, instead of being look how God has provided for me in the past, they're this situation right here is horrible, and I wish we were just back there because that had to be better than this. When we stop rehearsing God's faithfulness in our lives, we start romanticizing our captivity. It's that same thing. When we are not able to look back and see each of the ways that God has provided over and over and over again in our lives, we start to look back on where we were before all of that and be well, that was better than this situation, instead of expecting God to once again provide for us in our needs. That's exactly what the Egyptians did, or the Israelites did, They rewrote Egypt as the good old days, forgetting that it was bondage. And we do the same thing sometimes. We complain when things feel uncertain. We question God when things get hard. Not because we don't know what he's done, but because we've stopped consistently reminding ourselves of the ways that he has provided for us. Looking at Exodus 16, verse 4, moving forward, what does God do when the Israelites complain? Then the Lord said to Moses, "Look, I'm going to rain down food from heaven for you. Each day, the people can go out and pick up as much food as they need for that day. I will test them in this to see whether or not they will follow my instructions." So how does God respond when the Israelites were like, well, at least we had food back there? God provides for them again. He literally rains, it says he rains manna from the sky. They would go out in the morning and they would see the dew on the ground, and the dew would dry, and this manna or this bread would be left behind on the ground. And so God tells them to go and pick up this bread and as enough that they need for that day. This isn't just a direct response to their complaining, just to appease them, but this is a sort of faith development program. God is working to train his people to trust him each and every day. God says, I will provide enough for today, just come back tomorrow. See, God told his people to pick up enough for one day. Verse 16, it says, "These are the Lord's instructions. Each household should gather as much as it needs. Pick up 2 quarts for each person in your tent." See, God is so specific as what he wants his people to do, but yet some of them still don't listen. And I don't have this verse up on the screen, so just follow along. It's a long passage. It's going to be Exodus 16, 19 through 30. Then Moses told them, "Do not keep any of it until morning." But some of them didn't listen and kept some of it until morning. By then, it was full of maggots and smelled terrible. Moses was very angry with them. After this, the people gathered the food morning by morning, each family according to its need. And as the sun became hot, the flakes they had not picked up melted and disappeared. On the 6th day, they gathered twice as much as usual, 4 quarts for each person instead of 2. Then all the leaders of the community came and asked Moses for an explanation. He told them, "This is what the Lord commanded. Tomorrow will be a day of complete rest, a holy Sabbath day set apart for the Lord. So bake or boil as much as you want today and set aside what is left for tomorrow." So they put aside until morning, just as Moses had commanded. And in the morning, the leftover food was wholesome and good, without maggots or odor. Verse 25, Moses said, "Eat this food today, for today is the Sabbath day dedicated to the Lord. There will be no food on the ground today. You may gather food for 6 days, but on the 7th day is Sabbath. There will be no food on the ground that day." Some people went out anyways on the 7th day, but they found no food. The Lord asks Moses, "How long will these people refuse to obey my commands and instructions? They must realize the Sabbath is the Lord's gift to you. That is why he gives you a 2-day supply on the 6th day, so that there will be enough for 2 days. On the Sabbath day, you must each stay in your place. Do not go out to pick up food on the 7th day." So the people did not gather any food on the 7th day. So long passage. What's going on here? Here, what's going on is God tells his people, go out and get enough food for 1 day. And some of them listen and some of them don't. Some of them are like, okay, 1 day. And some of them get a little bit more than that because they're like, well, what if it doesn't come back tomorrow? And the food that they stored up for the next day, it goes bad and it has these maggots in it and it says it smells really bad. And Moses was angry. He was like, why didn't you just listen? Like, God told you he was going to provide for you. Why did you have to not listen? So they continue, and on the 6th day, Moses tells them to pick up double the amount because on the next day they're not going to have bread on the ground. God wants them to rest and to be to rest, and it's a Sabbath day that they're going to keep holy, right? So on the 7th day, no bread falls on the ground, and some of them still go out to look for it. And God, again, he says, why? How long will these people refuse to obey my commands and instructions? God's telling them exactly what he wants them to do. He's telling them exactly how he's providing for them each and every day along the way. See, God wasn't just giving them bread, he was teaching them a new way to live. One where their identity was no longer shaped by this slavery and bondage, but by dependence on him each and every day. when we ignore God's instructions, when we try to control or secure tomorrow's answers today, the very gift that God gave us can start to decay. Maybe not physically like the manna, but spiritually, emotionally, even relationally. See, disobedience spoils what was meant to bless us. And then there's the Sabbath, the rest that isn't just about taking a break, but about demonstrating belief. God designed rest as a rhythm of faith, a way for us to focus each and every day on praising Him. In every detail, God was teaching them and us how to live free. If we look into the New Testament, we can see something a little bit different. We can see a secondary purpose for this passage. See, in John 6:51, Jesus says, I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Anyone who eats this bread will live forever, and this bread which I will offer so that the world may live is my flesh. See, the Israelites received manna so they could survive each day, but Jesus came so that we could live forever. Manna was the physical provision for the Israelites' journey towards the promised land. Jesus is the spiritual provision for our journey towards eternity. Manna met their daily needs, while Jesus meets our eternal need for salvation. He doesn't just give bread, Jesus is the bread. See, when you're starving for purpose, when you're hungry for belonging, when you're thirsting for peace, only Jesus satisfies. He doesn't spoil, He doesn't rot, He doesn't run out. He's always going to be there providing for us each and every day. If you hear nothing else I say tonight, hear this. God doesn't just provide to meet your needs, He provides to deepen your faith. God's goal in providing for you isn't just to meet your needs, the things that you need each and every day. It's in order for you to rely on Him even more, to deepen your faith in Him. So how can we take this? How can we apply this to our lives each and every day? What is something we could do? First, start a rhythm of remembering. Make a list of the ways that God has shown up in your life. In Scripture, in your story, read it, pray it. I had a friend in college who did something like this. Every night, she would write down 10 things that she was grateful for. 10 things. After 2 weeks, she had 140 different things on her list of things she could look back and she could say, well, God provided for me here and here and here and here, here, here. 140 different ways that God had shown up in her life, ways that she could be grateful and have gratitude for the way that God had provided for her. Great idea. I love this one. Second one, fast from complaining. Try to go 24 hours without complaining. For me, the thing I complain about the most is internet speed. Whether it's here, whether it's at home, no matter what it is, there's just something that goes off. As soon as a page takes more than like a second to load, I'm like, turn off the Wi-Fi. It has to not be working right. And I complain about it all the time. Guys, complaining is something that happens in our lives where we don't always recognize that we're doing it right away, Guys, try to just go 24 hours without complaining. And when you catch yourself complaining, don't be upset with yourself. Instead, just say, okay, I made a mistake. Why am I complaining? How can I be grateful instead in this moment? And try to go for another 24 hours. Third thing, pray with open hands. Each day, pray to God. Say, God, I trust you to give me what I need for today, and I trust you to be enough if it's not what I expected. God, I trust you to give me what I need for today, and I trust you to be enough if it's not what I expected. So before we head in a small group, this whole story, this bread falling from heaven, the people of Israel trying to hoard the bread, the Sabbath rest, the daily trust, it all points to something deeper. God doesn't just provide to meet your needs, He provides to shape your trust. God doesn't just provide to meet our needs, but He provides to shape our trust. The Israelites grumbled, but so do we. We complain when life isn't what we expected, when we try to control things instead of surrendering them. We chase what we think will satisfy, but the true thing that only can satisfy us is Jesus. So as we head into small groups, don't just talk about this story and how this is a cool story of how God provided for them, but talk about how God can provide for us in our current day. What is a way that you expect God to provide for you now? God gave the Israelites daily bread, not weekly, not monthly, not yearly, daily bread, because He wanted to teach them to rely on Him each and every day. Pray with me, guys. God, thank you for being a faithful provider. Even when we forget, when we complain, when we try to do things our own way, God, you are patient and you keep showing up. God, teach us to trust you daily. Teach us to rest in your rhythm, not just to run on our own. God, teach us to trust you. God, forgive us for the ways that we've doubted or tried to take control, God, and remind us that Jesus is always enough for us. As we head into small groups, God, help us to be open and honest and hungry to grow. It's in your name we pray. Amen.